From Asia. Okay, any girls from Asia listening to this? Get on my boy Javi.
All our viewers in Asia, make sure to DM Javi. No, that's a good. Honestly, I think that's a very good attitude to have, man. Like, there's a saying: the adventures only happen to the adventurous. Like, if you don't get out of your shell and kind of take chances, nothing's ever gonna happen for you, you know. And essentially, that's kind of like networking 101. Like, you need to go reach out and meet people, you know. That's how doors open.
I mean, it just makes you like think a lot, you know. Like, for example, I mean, you guys have noticed, like, I'm really, really social. Like, when I was at USC, I will always meet people. Like, I joined a fraternity for that aspect. And then kind of when I moved to New York, I was studying for the CPA, which is the Certified Public Accountant, which is what you need to get to, you know, to be able to sign taxes and all that. And when I was doing that, like, I was lonely. Like, I didn't know anyone in New York. Like, yeah, I knew like 4 people. I knew my roommate. My brother was here too for a while, but it wasn't the same. I didn't have plans every single day. I wasn't like going out. Like, for example, I think in LA, I used to like go out every single weekend. And when I moved here, I didn't go out for like even a couple months. Like, it was like, it's lonely and it's hard, you know, and you kind of learn to focus on yourself. You know, like now I'm actually getting ready for a triathlon. Not that there is any right now because of COVID, but as soon as they come out, I want to be in shape for it. And it's because I went from, you know, thinking about drinking is so cool and you need to be with people and you need to like, you know, keep yourself entertained to be like, hey, like, it's actually cool to be lonely. Like, it's actually cool to just go to a park and read for a day or go for a run. Like, now I can go for a run for like, I went for a run to like Astoria, which is north of Brooklyn. And that was like a 40,000 steps, which was like 20 mile. I think it was like 20-mile run there and back. And I was like, bro, like, I enjoyed it. Like, I went there, it was 10 miles. I took a break, ate a little bit, ran back. And that was an entire day. And I was like, I'm fine with it. You know, back in the day, I would have been like, man, like, what am I going to do tonight? Like, you know, like, where am I going to hang out? What am I going to drink? Now I'm like, hey, like, it's fine. And when you start moving places, you learn that is completely okay. You know, you need to be happy with yourself before you can do anything. And that's something that I feel like at USC mostly, you get so lost. And I think it happens in all society now. Like, you get so lost and it's so easy to get lost because, you know, that's what everyone does. Like, you look on Instagram and your friends, like my friends back in LA, they're all like going out and, you know, watching the UFC fights and drinking and all that. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. Like, I'm not cool. Like, I'm lonely. But you just have to like start putting in yourself like, hey, like, that's okay. Like, just because you're seeing that on their phones doesn't mean that you have to do it, you know? So it's a different mentality that kind of brings you to live in so many places.
Dude, that's awesome. Gabe, have you ever struggled with something like that?
Yeah, I think so. There's a word for this. I remember, I think we talked about it before, but it's like when you see someone else on your phone, social media, somebody doing something fun and you're like, you feel left out. Like man, I should be doing that or I should be there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that definitely does happen. But again, like you said, it's a mentality thing. It's knowing that, dude, it's okay. Like, people can go and do all those things and enjoy themselves, and you can be at home watching a movie or studying or reading a book, like you said, or running and doing anything, and you can find happiness in that, man. So yeah, definitely I felt that.
Dude, I struggle with that a lot. Like, in the recent years, like, that was always something. I felt like I grew too dependent on like my friends and like significant others. And like you say, like, when you're alone, or in your case, it was because you moved across the country. But like, another time, say like your friends just go out or they have plans or something without you and you're just kind of like at home doing nothing. Like, that kind of creeps in, you know? And it's really hard not to feel that way. But that was like something that I just had like recently gotten over, man. But I 100% like understand what you went through.
I mean, how was your quarantine, guys? Like, were you guys like hanging out with people, or do you guys go through that too? Or do
you want to answer first, Gabe, or me?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I think it was different because in Fort Bragg, I mean, it was pretty like chill for the most part, I would say. I mean, businesses were shutting down and everything, so that kind of sucked because like we'd always go out to eat to like Los G's or whatever, right? To grab a bite to eat or to grab a few drinks, and we couldn't do that anymore. Like, it was 8:00 and everything was shut down already. We're like, what the heck is going on? But we would still like go kick the ball out together and pass around and whatnot. So there was still that little bit of social aspect, but it was only like me and 2 other friends. Instead of like inviting 4 or 5 people, I was only inviting like my closer friends to hang out. At least that was for me.
Yeah, and at first, I wasn't really taking it too serious. I was like, man, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm healthy, this and that. And it was a very selfish kind of mentality and attitude that I was kind of approaching it with. And I wasn't really kind of putting into account like all the other people that I do interact with, like my parents, my other family, my uncle, like all the older ones that maybe might have health issues, you know what I'm saying? And that was kind of like the approach that I had at first. And then once I kind of got over that mental shift, that's when your plans kind of start to change. You know, you don't really want to go out of town and visit friends. Like there was a time, I think like the past, I want to say, or the first like 4 or 5 months, I didn't leave Fort Bragg. And then the only reason I would to be like to get a haircut or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, but not to like go to parties. And you see on Snapchat all your friends or people in SoCal, maybe like some teammates or somebody that you have that are kind of going to these big social gatherings. And it's not like I'm like, oh, what are these guys doing? Like, it's fine. They can do whatever they want, you know? But for me, like, it wasn't really something that I'm going to want to do, you know? And especially here in Fort Bragg, like the only thing there is to do is to like go hang out with friends or go to restaurants and stuff. And when all that's shut down, you kind of have to make do with what you got, you know? And that kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier about like kind of just being with yourself, or maybe just hanging out with your parents, spending more time with your parents, by yourself, dude, finding other things to do. But luckily for like me and Gabe, like we started this, and it was like something that kind of takes up a lot of time, you know? And then that was mainly like over the summer. And then once school starts for me, you know, it gets me busy, and then Gabe started with work again. So it hasn't been too bad, you know. We've been very fortunate enough to be able to stay busy this quarantine. But overall,
so
I feel like what was that?
So you're back in school right now? Like,
yeah, so I've been
right
so I've been taking classes since I want to say the 3rd week of August. So I've been taking classes, and then in October the beginning of October I started this internship. So I've been just really busy, you know, just kind of it's been keeping me pretty busy throughout this whole thing, which is very good. I like it, you know, it gives me something to do.
It's impressive that you can keep recording and keep putting the time for this, even though you have like so much stuff. Like it's good. Like it kind of shows that you're in the right path, or you're onto something. So that's,
yeah, absolutely.
Proud.
Yeah, I mean, it is a reason to be proud. And again, like we mentioned earlier, it's just something that we both enjoyed like doing. So it doesn't seem like it's anything too crazy. The only hurdle is, like I would say, Gabe, I don't know if you agree with me, but the time, just kind of finding time to do it. Other than that, like it's easy, you know, like compared to other things, you know what I'm saying? I would much rather be doing this than let's say school or working, you know? So compared to those other things, when you do put it like school and then you have the podcast, I would much rather be doing the podcast. You know what I'm saying? So when I am done with like homework or projects or whatever I have to do with the internship, like I can kind of focus on this. But again, yeah, like you say, it is something to be proud about. Like it is fun. I think it's cool too, Gabe, like to just kind of start something out of nothing and then kind of see it, like I wouldn't say take off, but like kind of see it, like maybe you're scrolling through the page or you're scrolling on like the YouTube channel. It's like, dude, we did that like from nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's such a cool idea.
One of my favorite things so far has been that like when you see people comment or people just message me personally and they're like, oh man, I listened to your episode about blah, blah, blah. Like that was hella funny. Or I really liked that you talked about this. It's just like, it's such a good feeling to know that, you know, you sat down with somebody and you created this and somebody else was listening to it and they appreciated it or they thought it was funny or whatever. It's like, yeah, dude, like lit.
Yeah, I remember Mauro came to New York, I think it was like a month or 2 months ago. And he told me, he's like, we're, you know, talking about you know, people I haven't seen in years and all that. And he said, yeah, like Ethan and Gabe are doing this podcast and all that. And that's when I saw one of the first videos. And I remember I reached out to one of you guys and I was like, wow, like, oh, this is like pretty cool stuff. Like, I like it.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Yeah. And then one of the things that me and my two business partners, we always talk about is that, you know, our idea is just the first one out of many. You know, if you have the right mentality, like not a lot of people that, you know, have like big companies and all that, like they didn't just like have one idea, go through and like now it's the biggest company ever. They had like probably millions of ideas and then finally they got to one that they were like, oh, well, this actually worked. So, you know, it's what you learn through the process. You know, you guys are learning so much and like, you know, being able to do it with someone else too, like, hey, like I need to find a time not only for me, but for him that works for him too. And for someone else in New York that needs to be part of this.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like you guys start getting, and and if it takes off even more, then great. But if not, it's like you guys are to a point where you learn so much, now you can use it towards either the next idea or the next whatever. That's how we always talk about. We're always like, hey, like if we fail, we don't really talk about, but it's like if for anything this doesn't happen, like, or for example, like one of the things that we're talking about is like if one of us, for example, me that I'm in another city, I can't actually work on it because I'm in another city and I need to drop it. It's fine. Like it's just one of our first ideas out of many, and and that's the beautiful thing about having that drive and that motivation.